Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Unni, for giving me this opportunity. And I am going to speak today on the topic of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and diabetes interface. I think in the end of the day, today we have an elaborate talk on fatty liver. So I will be restricting my talk to the interface and special use of metformin and pioglitazone in this scenario. So I'll cover this on grounds of overview, the pathophysiologic connections between the two disorders, how diabetes affects the liver, how NAFLD affects diabetes, and is there a scenario where you have fatty liver disease with a normal glucose metabolism, and then treatment aspects, especially focusing on pioglitazone and metformin. So the prevalence globally for fatty liver disease is to the tune of 20 to 30%. India is slightly on the higher side. It's around 27 to 33%. And it's a big, you can say that 1/3 of the Indian population suffers from fatty liver disease. And not only diabetes is an important cause, but you see that rapid weight fluctuation, whether it's weight loss, weight gain, especially post-bariatric scenario, it's a very common occurrence, and there is a role of genetic inheritance, and of course medications are itself known to be affecting the liver to certain extents. So all of us know that there are various stages of fatty liver disease. So it's a spectrum of disorder. It's not one disease. So it's a spectrum which moves from healthy liver to hepatic steatosis to NASH to liver cirrhosis. And this is reversible to an extent till the stage of NASH. So what is important is identifying the disease when it is in the stage of NASH and it has not progressed. The point is that most of the diagnosis over here is histologic. So we really can't identify patients at a very early stage. That's a irony and a tragedy both. So I think that's an important challenge in identifying fatty liver. Now, how the connection between these two disorders exists is the question. So first I'll be talking on how NAFLD causes diabetes. And you can see that there is, in a patient with NAFLD, there is an increase in the hepatic glucose output. There is hepatic insulin resistance. There is release of diabetogenic proteins. So a lot of diabetogenic proteins are produced in a fatty liver, which is otherwise not produced in a normal liver. And this in turn leads to a lot of fat accumulation, which in turn leads to inflammation. So this whole scenario predisposes to a atherogenic dyslipidemia. And in this atherogenic dyslipidemia, there is a status of high inflammation all over the body, high procoagulation all over the body, and that is what predisposes to the micro and macrovascular complications in diabetes. So here the question is, which comes earlier is not known, whether it is the fatty liver which comes earlier or the diabetes which comes earlier. But nevertheless, one is known to fuel the other. So it is important to identify a fatty liver status, and I'm sure we see a lot of ultrasound reports mentioning grade 1 fatty liver as a random diagnosis, and most of us would not pay serious attention to it. But considering the pathophysiology, it's high time that we start paying attention to this kind of a problem and get it settled down as early as possible. Now, how diabetes affects liver? So how diabetes itself predisposes to fatty liver is the second thing. So we all know that the diabetes produces a free fatty acid flux from the peripheral tissues to the liver, and this is known to indirectly produce a lipotoxicity in the hepatocyte, which is known to increase the oxidative stress, and it is known to cause more of apoptosis, necrosis, and impairment of hepatocellular regeneration. And this whole thing produces an oncogenic atmosphere, which in turn predisposes to hepatocellular carcinoma. So the risk of HCC in patients with type 2 diabetes is significantly more as compared to non-diabetic population. So if you see in a diagram, it's not very complicated to understand that both have a two-way pathway. So diabetes in turn produces fatty liver in turn produces diabetes. So both can be cause as well as effect, and mainly this pathway we are well versed with. So how type 2 diabetes affects the liver is what we are well versed with. But how NAFLD itself is a cause for diabetes is what we don't know. And this is probable mechanisms where all the free fatty acid, peripheral insulin resistance, and oxidative stress pathways start functioning to cause the liver cell damage. So one needs to look in actively. In fact, nowadays they say that NAFLD is known to be the unknown complication of diabetes. So it has to be looked into that angle when we are talking about NAFLD. So it is what type 2 diabetes is the strongest clinical predictors for progression of NAFLD to NASH. So if you have a patient with fatty liver and diabetes, be sure that this patient is likely to develop into NASH and cirrhosis eventually with time if uncontrolled. And what you can see is that nearly 17% present with advanced liver fibrosis if you measure them on elastography. So the advanced technique will pick up more and more cases. And if you see, based on histology, nearly 80% would have NASH, and advanced fibrosis to the tune of 30 to 40% is what has been found on histological diagnosis. That's why most of the studies have actually insisted on histologic diagnosis, because that's the major hitch in diagnosis of type 2 of NAFLD. Now, why it is important to know about this is because it does affect the clinical outcomes. The outcomes are poor if you have a coexistence of these two disorders. And you see that all over the world, hepatoscellular carcinoma has these two as the common etiological factor, type 2 diabetes and the NAFLD as the prime two factors in causation of the malignancy, and also the mortality due to both the causes, whether it's the hepatic cause or the diabetic cause, is much more when both are associated in one person. So this actually shows the same pathway of how NAFLD leads to diabetes through this pathway, and how diabetes leads to disrepair causing hepatocellular damage. Okay, you have a patient with NAFLD, what are the likely sequelae that the patient can develop? So these patients are more prone for overall mortality due to NASH and hepatic damage, then risk of cancer of the liver, colon and others also. Risk of type 2 diabetes, risk of surgical complications are high because they are more prone for micro and macrovascular complications, and you can see that chronic kidney disease, so what we call as the hepatorenal syndrome, that is also very commonly seen in this patient population. So coming to the treatment aspect of NAFLD, you can see that major treatment focuses on lifestyle modification and restriction of calories. There has been pharmacologic treatment and bariatric surgery which offers benefit for reduction of fatty liver. And there is a role of aerobic exercise in improving the fatty liver pathophysiology. Now there are a lot of drugs which have been studied. So I will not go with the whole list of drugs because I have been specifically told to be restricting my talk to pioglitazone and metformin. But you can see that there have been a lot of anti-diabetic agents, mainly the GLP-1 RA and liraglutide has shown promising results in fatty liver. But all the data with metformin, pioglitazone have shown that there has been a significant improvement in the liver enzyme and hepatic steatosis. But as far as the score, the fatty acid, the non-alcoholic score that is considered, metformin has no role in improvement of the histology and the score of the fatty acid disorder. But relatively, pioglitazone has significant benefit in both this fibrosis as well as the histological evidence of fatty liver. So the difference between pioglitazone and metformin is mainly in terms of histologic improvement that pioglitazone offers over metformin. So that's an important take home for us. And these are the newer drugs, and you can see that most of them are GLP-1 RAs, and I think we are proud to have saroglitazole as a drug which is now upcoming for NASH, and I think the Indian origin drug which is also beneficial for fatty liver. So we will see a lot of drugs coming in future also for fatty liver. They are in the recruiting phases of the trial. So coming to the insulin sensitizer group, which we are talking about, it has been seen that there are total about 15 RCTs which have been done. Most of them have been with pioglitazone or metformin or a combination of both. Some have been with rosiglitazone also. The disadvantage of these RCTs is that they have been in small numbers. Again, small numbers are because they are all histologically proven NASH. So very rarely patient would consent for allowing histology for a diagnosis of NASH. So metformin has shown mixed results in this. So some studies have shown that metformin is beneficial, some have shown that it has no benefit. So metformin has an equal balance of positive and negative studies. The metformin studies have shown a significant weight loss. Glitazone studies, we know that would show significant weight gain. But what has been posed is that metformin acts probably through weight reduction. So the mechanism of benefit to fatty liver through metformin has been mainly through benefit of BMI reduction. So this is what has been the conclusion of most of the studies. What about pioglitazone? Pioglitazone is known to affect the pathophysiology of the disease. So it is known to improve the insulin sensitivity. It is known to show a decrease in the ballooning, necrosis, and inflammation in the hepatocytes. So as I said, that the score and the fibrosis phenomenon is significantly lower on pioglitazone therapy. And you can see that apart from this, there is a benefit of glycemic benefit that it offers separately as beyond reducing the inflammation status and the metabolic and histologic improvement. So glitazones have more to offer as far as fatty liver disease is considered. But of course, we need to weigh the risk of weight gain and fluid water retention against this whole benefit that it offers. So in pioglitazone studies, it has been shown that 58% of their patients, this is on an average, showed an improvement of at least 2 points of the score, and at least 51% had a resolution of NASH if it has been used earlier in the course of the disease. So this is an important aspect that when reversal of disease is considered, pioglitazone has more role than metformin has to offer. And as I said, metformin has two types of studies. Some are positive studies, some are negative studies. And overall, basically, it has been concluded that metformin improves liver function through improvement of HOMA-IR, BMI, and there is no histological response in these patients with NAFLD, though there has been a significant reduction in the enzymes which have been seen in NAFLD. So to conclude, NAFLD is an overlooked complication of diabetes. It has a complex bidirectional relationship between the two disorders. Both are known to fuel each other. So it is important to identify them. And the available therapies targeting insulin resistance, of which glitazones offer more benefit than metformin. And as I said, that there are some variants of NAFLD which have normal glucose metabolism. They may not be responding to these drugs which are available, and they need special genetic targets to be addressed to, and that is a separate characteristics that we need to look in our population. So I think that's all in my presentation. Thank you so much.